Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. The South African closed continues to deliver. Amongst the starting of so many chess tournaments worldwide, you've got the Prague Masters, which has just started. There's the St. Louis Masters that'll be starting, and the American Cup coming up as well. And then it's the candidates very soon. So there's a lot of chess going on. I'm playing my own tournament this weekend, which would be cool. But South African Open closed round 8. We start with the women's section, and it's very important because going into this round, we had 4 leaders, but 2 have emerged. We have the first game between Robyn, Julian, Klaasen, and Jackie Krobler. We have an interesting system with d4, d6, now knight f6, bishop to g2, and now we're going for g6. So we effectively get a transposition into kind of like a queen, King's Indian style game, kind of, but not really. It's a similar setup from black, but white hasn't pushed central pawns to gain the space. So we get c4, and now c5, and now we're kind of more in a King's Indian. Get knight to c3, queen b6 very early. Now we get an h3, takes, knight takes. Now we get knight to c6, and then we get e3. The rook slides over, and it's an interesting position. It is an interesting position. We get rook to e1, a6, knight to a4 hits the queen. The queen has to drop away, and now we get queen e2, and it's a balanced game. Bishop to d7. Typically, black would launch a counterattack, but the center is, very open. So white's bishop is nice and open. Black will hope to open their bishop, and it'll be an interesting game, interesting tactical game. We have knight to c3, rook a to b8, which serves the purpose of potentially preparing b5 in the future, but also getting off of this diagonal. We get a bishop to d2, and now e5, striking in the center. The knight goes back to b3, and this is always something you have to weigh up, because this square is now very weak. The bishop, the knight, potentially the queen or a rook getting into that square, and it does weaken now d5. It can't really go forward yet, so it's a backwards pawn, but now we get bishop to e6. We get the knight into d5, queen out to d7. You could consider taking, but you got to be careful what you take with, because if you take with the bishop, you're now giving up a bishop. And potentially takes, this knight has to drop back, and now, rook to c1, and white might just be a bit better. So, queen d7, now king to h2, and now b5. It is played, but it is a huge mistake. Huge mistake. The best move in this position was actually to play e4. It's an interesting move because you block out this bishop. And now white struggles to kind of develop. You can try and move this bishop maybe to get on this diagonal and trade. It's still a maneuvering game, but this becomes a minor problem. You might have to swing your bishop out a different way, somewhere else. And it's currently pinned to this pawn as well. So there would have been knight takes f6, bishop takes. Now you get the other knight into d4. We get maybe d5, rook d1, something like this. Yeah, but b5, total mistake. Because now we take, and now we can take again. And now we can play queen f3, which is simply a fork of the 2 pieces. There's not really a way to get out of it. You can go here, but you're dropping the bishop. You can play h6, but, Robyn is just in complete control. She's got to safeguard her king, not allow too much counterplay for black as we continue to trade pieces, and not allow her king to come under threat. She sacrifices the piece back, but she's now up 2 pawns. And she continues to harass the black king, and eventually she will make a breakthrough. She continues, she defends her position, she consolidates very nicely. She can offer the rook trade. We get rook to f4, which is a mistake because you take with check, and you give another check, and a check again. The queen has to be sacrificed. You go for the king, but it's not enough. We pin the rook, we pick it up, and now we just go here, and there will be mate very soon on the board. And there it is. And Robyn, Julian Klaasen, is a leader, and she's joined by one of these 2 ladies. She is joined by Alexei Amruni or Hayley Nell. Hayley Nell with the black pieces. We have Amruni with the white pieces, and we get a 4 knights. And I always tell you on the channel, although it's becoming less and less true, whenever you see the 4 knights, expect a draw. Not today. We get d4 takes, now bishop to b4. We get this capture early and a bishop to d3, and it's very much played in the style of the Scotch, and we continue to develop, and it's very equal. For a very long time, this game is not going to be won. It's going to be won because someone makes a mistake, or it's going to be won in an endgame. And endgames are hard to play, as we will mention very soon in the video. Endgames are hard to play. Look at this. The queens have come off. We've got exactly the same pieces. The only imbalance really is the pawn structure. Black has really pushed the kingside pawns, and their queenside pawns, there's maybe this pawn is a bit of a weakness. It's difficult to target, but it's maybe a bit of a weakness. White's pawns are all together 2 sets of 3, as opposed to a set of 3 that's kind of half split, a set of 2 that's a bit hanging, and then this one. So black does have some weaknesses, but, look at that. Knight gets nice activity. This bishop is active. The rook is active. Black's got good activity. As the knight continues to get kicked around, we get this check. It comes in. And you're always evaluating, is the knight for bishop trade worth it? Is it worth it? Is it what you want? Now we do get this trade, but that's because the rook comes in. It defends, it attacks. And now where's the knight going? It can go back this way, but now my king. And I begin to make progress. Hayley now begins to make some progress. She plays d3, sacrifices the pawn, and white is winning. White is winning. The best move in this position was to play king f6. Bring the king closer to the center. I say as if I'm any better. So bishop c8 a mistake, and d3 an inaccuracy, and now Alexei Amruni is winning. But c takes d3 is the wrong move. The correct move is most likely rook takes. Rook takes d3, because if rook takes d3, pawn takes d3, you can place, there's like f4, maybe trying to encroach on the position, but there's knight d4. And you begin to cause huge problems for black. The knight does a fantastic job against the bishop in this case. C takes d4 is wrong. Now the king comes to f6. We do make progress. And the knight doesn't make as much of an impact, because the black king just gets into the position, and we lose the game because there's takes. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was time pressure or it's just this move you just can't do anything with. You're trying to hang on to this pawn, but you can't. You can try maybe play something like rook to c1. It's probably not as good because there is still takes, but maybe the position is defendable. It's a draw, but the black king is really well placed. The bishop is guarding this and this. You might say, well, I can pick this up, but there's, like rook d2. And, I'm now starting to threaten your king. And so you've got to play like, knight e5. And if for example, you can't go here with check, so you come up. And there's, king g1 and so forth. So devastating for Alexei. She was in a balanced position. But if we go to the overall standings in the women's section, Robyn, Julian, Klaasen, Hayley, Nell are the 2 leaders on 6 points. They are half a point ahead of Badenhorst and Anzel Laubscher, both on 5.5. They made draws today. Then there's on 5 points Joya. Then another point Dia. Alexei Amruni also on 4 with Dia. 3.5 points for Sizakele Masango. 3 points for Chismo Washoma. 2.5 points for Kajal Naidu. 2 points for Jackie Krobler. And 1 point for Maria Grief, who is striking. Now we move on to the open section. So let's go into the tab again. We move to the open section, and it's just a couple of games. The first one we have to look at is Caleb playing Jack van Sale. And the reason I bring it up is because he is chasing. He's trying to chase Jan Karsten, international master Jan Karsten. He's trying. But what we get here is so strange. We get the knight coming back to d2. And he makes a draw in 12 moves. I know he's got the black pieces, but he played a Sicilian. You would think he would play with a little bit more ambition. He's trying to chase. He was already, a half a point behind or whatever. And on the other board, the guy who was actually, like half a point behind or a point behind was Banele Mhango. He's playing the other brother, Judah. Now, they did not make a quick draw. We had a very interesting game between these two. It was by no means a quick draw, but still, you will see that the players, they have to play for a victory. They have to play for a victory, but it's not easy to win on demand when you need to. Now, we get a couple of mistakes here from white, and they land themselves in serious pressure. Banele is winning. He's got a complete and utter winning advantage. But just kind of quietly, the advantage disappears. Just kind of low-key, the advantage disappears. You can see that the bar's gone okay. It thinks white's position's not dreadful. We managed to, trade off. And this endgame is almost impossible to win. Almost impossible to win. We get to equal material, 3 pawns on 2 minor pieces, and you may have 2 bishops. You may even split the pawns. It's not enough. It's not enough. So we get to this endgame, which, they play for a very long time, but it is a draw. Unless you can somehow convince the king to mate itself, it is a draw. And you can't really pick up a piece. You can repeat moves. There's ways to, almost force repetition. And eventually, they get you and they agree to a draw on move 66. So that left Jan Karsten by himself with a free hand against James Dinham. E4, C5, another Sicilian, but not the same Sicilian we saw between the game Jack and Caleb. This was a, dare I say, in a very brutish manner, a proper Sicilian, where the players fought each other, and Jan was worse. Move 10. He played bishop C4, he's worse. But James misses it. Perhaps he thought they were going for repetition and that he would go here and we would have the same thing. I don't know. I don't see any reason not to take the bishop. Just take the bishop. Queen takes c4, and you can play like b5. Queen d3, bishop e7. You're fine. I don't get it. Perhaps they thought, yeah, you see here, that they think there's repetition, but there's long castles. The most awesome way to refute repetition, by the way, long castles, lining up your rook, and so on, and potential sacrifices, and just letting you take the bishop. Completely free. We get e5. Knight jumps out to f5. We take with check. We take the knight. But now you've got to defend this position as black. You've landed yourself in some hot water. White continues to strike. They allow a fork of the two pieces. They just allow a clean fork, but it's because I can take. You can take my knight, I take your knight, I hit the bishop, you take here, you threaten mate, so I have to play c3, and then you take back, I go here, king slides over, now white is completely winning, rook he1, check, king slides over, we go back, we push, you make a queen, I take it, you come back, and in unbelievable fashion, this game just completely turns, and ladies and gentlemen, he's done it again. He's done it again. Takes, we sacrifice the rook. James goes for perpetual. He has to go for it. He's got no choice. He's threatening mate. But unfortunately, we can get the queen trade. And when the dust settles, it is this endgame that Jan Karsten must win. He's up 2 pawns. It's plus 3.7. James still has 2 pawns of his own that are doing a decent job, if not the best job, at delaying these 3 pawns. His biggest worry is the c pawn currently. If you can win that, that would be great. We get rook a3, trying to potentially get in behind one of the pawns. For example, if you push here, you obviously lose it. If you go here, you're very passive, and I can maybe like swing in behind these and whatnot and harass the king. So we get king to c2, check, and we can pick up on h2. But is that the right plan? Because now c5. You can play h5. I play c6. Takes. I play c7. You get back with rook h8. But I play rook h1. And James resigns. James resigns because even though he can go here, you obviously can't take the rook because promotion. In this position, there is rook h7 check. And the king is forced to the back rank. And, okay, you can't give the check. Sorry, the best move in this position is to play king e3. And what can black do? They can push the pawn. King f3 does the job. You can push the pawn. I take the pawn. And now what do? You play like king f8. And then I give you check. And you go here. I win the rook. Game over. And so we look at the standings for the open session. After 8 rounds, Jan Karsten has a 1.5 point lead. Can he be catched with 3 rounds to go? Then, we've got a huge tie there for 3rd place between Caleb, Judah, and now Charlton Mnyasta, and 5 points for Banele Mhango, who's having a solid event. On 4 points, Jack van Selroot, James Dinham, and Daniel Crowley. 3.5 points for Kelvin John Klaasen, Michael Simpson, and Daniel Barish, both on 3 points, and 1.5 points for Kanya Masibuko, who's having a tough tournament. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you again soon for round 9.